Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. I'm your host, Ike. I'm here with Nathan. Say hello, Nathan.
Hi, how's it going today?
Pretty good. The audience out there is dying to know, what's your favorite dad joke?
I think my favorite dad joke would probably be Lost on You. I had one written down about chemistry, but I'm not sure it would get a good reaction.
Ah! Oh! The old fadeaway bang zing. Love it. Do you have a favorite underutilized word?
It would have to be elusive. Kind of mysterious and deceptive.
Oh, man, I wish I could say that about myself. Do you have a movie that when you're flipping through the channels or scrolling through YouTube and you see a clip from or whatever that you just can't help but play?
Um, Movie-wise, I'm not sure.
If one doesn't come to mind, what's the last movie you watched that you really liked?
Ooh, I watched Shang-Chi in theaters, and it was fantastic. That one was great.
I've been hearing that all around the world, so I think I very well might have to check it out. Growing up, what was your favorite book?
My favorite book was The Mysterious Benedict Society.
Ooh, do tell. I have never heard of this.
So the plot of this book revolves around three kids getting a newspaper advertisement for a test into a prestigious private school. And once they go to the test site, they're all sat down with problems that they have to solve that are preposterous, and most of them are very difficult challenges. And essentially, once these four kids get through the initial testing, they're sent to an island where they have to investigate a mysterious problem that is causing all of the adults in the society to be essentially mind controlled by their TVs and by radio waves, and only children can avert this through their abilities and through not being set in their ways through their stubbornness. So
Oh, that's awesome.
they're tasked with solving this issue, and led by a very, very, very smart and careful leader.
That's awesome. That sounds really rad. What's the title again?
It's called The Mysterious Benedict Society, and they actually just made a television show I would recommend as well.
Oh, nice. It's always good when, your fiction gets to change platforms and still retain its, coolness.
Yeah.
If you had to evacuate your house or whatever domicile you were living in, what's the first thing you would grab?
I would grab both my computers, and I would make sure that I took with me a few important items of clothing.
Underwear, socks,
Those would be the first things I went to, but mostly my computer. I would be fine if I had my computer.
I'm a little ashamed to admit that I forgot to grab important clothes items the one time I've had to evacuate my house.
Ooh.
Something I had to come back around for when I realized I was wearing all the clothes I technically had with me.
Ooh.
What comes to mind when I say underrated?
I would have to say Super Mario. That would be the first thing that comes to mind. I've been watching a lot of old Super Mario games, and I don't think they get enough respect.
They are bangers, to be sure. Do you have a piece of advice that you've gotten over the years that has really stuck out with you as being the best, or one that you find yourself repeating to yourself over and over?
For me, it would have to be slow down. For me, I found myself I found myself having a hard time getting through menial tasks because it felt like I would just want to do the fun things all the time, and it took me several years to learn how to take a deep breath and kind of ride with it, go with it when there's things that I don't necessarily want to do. And that helped me transition in the last few years for sure.
Yeah, that's all. That is definitely one of those ones I too struggled with, and yeah, once you figure it out, it's Did it feel once you kind of got told that and started to be able to embody that and practice that, that it was kind of just like it was a bit kind of like reaching down and like picking up gold. It was in front of you like the whole time. It wasn't easy, like it was heavy to lift, but at the same time it was just right there and it felt like so simple. Once
Yeah,
you were able to do it.
it was pivotal for me to be able to seize that because I agree it was something that was in front of me, but at the same time it felt so unapproachable for a long time.
Yeah.
That it felt like my characteristics didn't comply with slowing down, and once I realized that I could just shift my view on it, I was able to interact with people around me and myself a lot better.
You have a favorite anecdote that you like to tell? You're at a party, just met somebody, and you're trying to make waves or gel. Is there one anecdote that kind of pops out?
Yeah, so in high school, in my sophomore year of high school, I really wanted to fly to a competition, and the problem was that it was on a weekend of a Jewish holiday, which my family celebrates, and I myself at that point decided that I was an atheist, I didn't want to participate, and I really wanted to do this tournament. So instead of talking to my parents, who I knew would not be okay with me doing this, I booked a flight to Detroit, and I flew and made up an elaborate scheme that I was going to my friend's house in San Jose and that I would be back the next day. And I went to Detroit, and halfway through the trip, my parents found out where I had went, and that was the start of a whole cycle of issues. But for me, in retrospect, one of the funniest things that I think I've ever pulled off.
Yeah, that's the old classic switcheroo. If I tell them I'm here, that means I'm invisible. I can just do whatever I want.
I thought I was a genius. I had gotten away with murder.
If you could guarantee one of your dreams would come true, which one would it be, do you think?
I've had a few dreams that I would definitely wish into existence, most of which have to do with waking up and realizing that I wasn't going to have to worry about money and relationships. And recently one happened that I woke up and weirdly enough, I was a talk show host. And for me, that felt like the perfect thing to be doing. And every day I was able to dress up and go on a talk show. And I got millions of viewers. I was like a John Oliver-esque role.
That sounds pretty dope.
Yeah.
Now, if you could work any one of the jobs you've done over the course of your life, but get paid the same as the job where you made the most, which job would you work?
Ooh. I think I would work as a summer camp counselor, not a normal counselor, but as one of the camp like regional managers. I guess I wasn't quite in that position, but I worked at a summer camp for 2 or 3 years, and I loved working with kids and doing sports and games, even as an adult. So I think that would be a good role for me.
Yeah, it's surprisingly inelastic how fun that position is, of just hanging out, reclaiming some of your childhood that has either just gone by or has been gone for a while, and it always still holds up. Playing camp games is just, it's a classic for a reason.
Definitely.
What do you regret not having done or tried before you graduated high school?
I regret not having organized my own party, really. I wish that I had put more of an effort into meeting new people through my school, and I wish I'd stepped out of my comfort zone more to do so.
Yeah. That's the tricky one, right? That last one is stepping out of the area where you feel comfortable, where you feel like the most in control, in charge, and like taking a risk. It's that one seems to rear its head in high school, but continue being a problem for most of us as time goes on, unless you put your foot down and conquer it.
Yeah, 100%.
What's the most bizarre fact you know to be true?
Did you know that in Switzerland it is actually illegal to own only one guinea pig? You need to own multiples because they're social animals, and if you only own one, it's considered animal abuse.
That's so sweet.
Yeah,
That's so cool that a country went so far to like recognize and appreciate an animal's like well-being. That's beautiful.
yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Fill in the blank. This weekend was so great. I spent 13 hours doing.
Magic the Gathering tournaments.
That does sound like a so great weekend.
Yeah.
What's something that you see in someone else that makes you want to be their friend?
People who have a lot of empathy, when I can tell that they care about someone for more than just uh, menial things, and I think it's a trait that I am pretty good at recognizing, so it definitely attracts me.
What do you wish you had ended sooner?
I wish I'd ended a friendship with someone close to me sooner. That lasted longer than it should have, and that caused a lot of harm and stress for both of us.
Do you think that's something that you're only able to say because you're looking back at it in like retrospect and hindsight being 2020, or are there telltale signs that you should have dipped out earlier?
I think it's a combination of both, but certainly something that I could have been more aware of in the moment given their history and their current endeavors. But I think that at the same time, the past kind of makes it hard to have a look at someone who you were close to and who's changed.
Totally. Yeah, it's like so hard. It's one of those, that's also another one of those things where it's like you're like too close to the problem to see it, right? So much of the time with like emotional entanglement, you love this person, you there's things you like about them, and like the idea of ending that ends their part of being with you, and like there's that whole entire ball of wax.
Yeah, it's hard to unpack in the moment, I would say. At least it was from my experience.
Same. On the flip side of that coin, what do you wish you had started sooner?
I wish I had started doing debate in high school sooner. I met a lot of my high school friends through debate, and I learned a lot about how to be convincing in your speech and how to engage with someone critically. And I didn't start that until senior year of high school.
Yeah, that's a really good talent, especially in times where so many, seemingly to me anyway, there are so many like emotional arguments out there. Like so many people when they argue it becomes about an emotional issue and they can no longer stay objective. So the ability to do that, even if just in prep, gives you so much advantage when like having a conversation, talking to people, trying to get a job, trying to, do whatever also on the convincing side. But it is such an underutilized talent in our current like social landscape.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people would find that surprisingly they get a lot of excitement and they feel like they're learning a lot in a way that's easily compressed. I think time spent translates really well into learning as well in the sport, in quotes.
Yeah. Now, if you could go back in time and tell yourself one sentence, what would it be and when would it be?
I think I would tell myself that middle school and high school aren't going to define you for your whole life. Um, Additionally, I'm smart and capable, and honestly, it's not the end of the world if I don't find that a class excites me or I don't find that the people around me excite me. I could find my own people, and that's something that I wish that I had known earlier instead of feeling the need to fit in with those that were placed around me, just seeking out other people more.
Mm. Yeah, that's something I never would have. That's such a good way of putting it. That like with the whole like you don't have to fit in with the people around you. There's other people. That is something that is now that you're saying it, I'm seeing in my own mind back then that is such a thing that like we assume that we have to gel with what's around us unless it's like, toxic as shit or whatever. And even then sometimes. But yeah, like the world is full of people. And with the internet we can find them. It is so true that, you don't need to gel necessarily with the people. Obviously, if you can, it's better to for everybody if you're like, reciprocal with, just mutual respect. But when it comes to like making friends and hanging out with people, it doesn't, especially nowadays, it doesn't have to be the person that you're in class with or, even a club with.
Yeah. And it's definitely something that it took a long time for me to know because I felt placed around those people from such a young age. Everyone, especially in the education system, you don't really get to pick and choose. And I'm thankful that switching environments unlocked a lot of doors, switching high schools and switching middle schools as well, actually.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Now, before we throw it to our first ad break, if you could make sure listeners of this podcast heard one song, which would it be?
I would recommend Rich Brian's Where Does the Time Go featuring Joji. I think that is one of my current favorite songs.
Awesome. Well, folks out there listening, make sure to check out that song or check out this commercial. Either way, we'll be right back. Do you ever find yourself doing a mundane activity with nothing to keep you from gouging your eyes out or sticking a pencil through one ear and out the other? Uh-huh. Well, then perhaps I could introduce you to music. Music comes in a variety of different types, flavors, and colors. Theorists say that it's the best thing to introduce to your life since food. So go out and get some and make your life just a little bit more bearable. And we're back. So Nathan, what is your passion?
My passion would have to be playing Magic the Gathering and competing in tournaments. To get into a little explanation of what that means, Magic the Gathering is a strategy card game, and from a very young age, I've been competing in tournaments. But I would say that the most important part of the tournaments is partially what you're working towards. The community includes a lot of people who want to qualify for what is known as the Pro Tour, and that requires a lot of hours of preparation and practice with a lot of similarly minded people working towards this accomplishment, usually achieved through getting a very high record or score in a series of qualifiers and tournaments. And so for me, the journey of working on qualifying for these tournaments with my friends and otherwise is really impactful, and I'm super passionate about pursuing that. And additionally, the amount of time is handsomely rewarded in the game, where you can see yourself and others making progress for how much they put in and how much work they try to achieve through collaboration and otherwise. So for me, I would say that Magic engaging you mentally and socially is a very, very important aspect of it that I'm super passionate about.
So, before we go any further, let's press the rewind button a little bit. What is your origin story when it comes to Magic? Like, how did you get into it? When did you get into it? What got you into it?
Yeah. At about 9 years old, I went to summer camp, and at the summer camp, the counselors were playing Magic, and at the time I played a lot of Pokemon and other games and had collectible cards. But since everyone was playing Magic at that camp, I was interested and asked to be taught how to play. So over the course of that summer, I not only learned how to play, but I went to the card store and went to play booster drafts and competitions with friends where I learned there. And through playing, I kind of moved up in the ranks in a way. So I went from playing weekly casual tournaments that were 3 or 4 hours every Friday night to slowly transitioning into bigger tournaments that happened Saturdays and Sundays. Originally, I grew up in Marin, and I was playing in San Rafael at a tournament called Gamescape North, and sorry, a card store called Gamescape North. And after that, I started playing in San Francisco. And this store versus games was sort of my breeding pool, pun intended, if you know the card. And
Nice.
so through playing and meeting people in San Francisco, I met a close friend who I'm still close friends with today, and my friend Sanchez and I spent a lot of time preparing for Grand Prix, which are essentially a large convention where you play in a big main event and compete for huge prizes. So we did that and competed in San Diego in a big tournament, and a little taste of success there kind of drove me to pursuing it as like a full-time week to week activity that I had to squeeze in on top of school. And surprisingly, from about 7th or 8th grade onward, playing Magic the Gathering every weekend was what became the norm for me. And so I met a lot of people through playing, and in the last few years, it's really paid off through online success and successes in big tournaments that I couldn't have imagined, unfortunately accompanied by some very poor decisions on the design front and on the organized play front, where tournaments are not exactly operating to their fullest potential right now. So that's just a little insight into the process, a quick wrap up of what it's looked like.
Do you remember what, like, when you realized that you wanted to go from casual to competitive? Do you remember the kind of, either the moment itself or any of the kind of, like, emotive tissues, or just, what was it that, like, moved you from, oh, this is fun, I'm playing with friends, to I want to, like, take this not necessarily seriously, but I want to try to, like, play this like, a rec sport, or, like one would, like, with some amount of competitive juices to it, if you will.
I would say I've always been really driven by the prospect of winning. Even from when I just started out, my goal had always been, I'm going to try to win as many games as I can in this tournament to prove mostly to myself that I was capable of doing so. But I think I really had the interest when I met a lot of people who were sharing similar goals, and who also treated me as an equal when I presented knowledgeable points on the game. So that kind of led me to feeling validated, like I was capable of doing this because others saw what maybe I didn't really know yet. And so that kind of motivated me from taking it to more of a casual interest to something competitive that I pursued.
Yeah, that definitely is a really beautiful aspect of this game, is that it doesn't seem to be particularly ageist in regards to if you're good or not. Like, if you're good enough, you're going to be recognized that you're good enough, generally speaking. Obviously, there's outliers, some people are pig-headed, some people are stupid, some people are ageist, but by and large, from my experience in the community, and it sounds like from your experience in the community, that it, skill knows no age.
Yeah, definitely.
So, of all the accomplishments you've had thus far, what do you think is the one that you're the most proud of when it comes to, Magic?
So, even though it's not the biggest accomplishment I've had, I would say it was qualifying for a team pro tour level event with two of my best friends. And doing so was honestly like amazing. Playing with two friends and myself versus some of the best in the world was like a shared experience that I don't think any individual tournament could really capture for me.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on it, I would say that's like I'm most proud of achieving that at a time where my skills weren't quite as crafted, I think.
And was that your first Pro Tour, that one?
Yeah. So my
Yeah.
first pro tour was with my good friends.
Yeah. And that's actually how we met too, is we both tested for that event together. I think, basically.
Yeah, and
I think we like knew of each other before then, but I think that was the first time that we were around each other for any like meaningful and, you know, useful
substantial
amount
amount
of
of
time.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, working at that living in the Airbnb for a few weeks and testing and playing is such a unique experience that I think won't necessarily come back to Magic, but I will remember how fun it was and how much you get to learn about others, even if you're playing a game with everyone all day.
Yeah. That definitely, sadly, I do think it is likely a thing of the past. Obviously, I think both of us wish it would return because it was, you know, such a fun, you know, experience and such a fun kind of context to be playing a competitive game, you know, with your friends. I guess shared goal when it's usually a singular experience. But with COVID and with everything else, it is pretty darn unlikely.
Yeah, unfortunately.
What do you think the biggest misconception about Magic, especially competitive Magic, is by the wider world?
I think people think of it in the same vein as other, maybe seen as weeby or nerdy games. They see it as Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Like they see the cartoons and they think it's like a child's game. But I think they kind of miss the mark on that when they don't see the similarities to other games like chess, which I see as widely regarded as one of the best strategy games of all time.
Yep.
And I think if people were able to dissect what was going on and try to play the game themselves, they'd realize how low their depth of knowledge is when it comes to the subject. Or maybe how different it is than their preconceived notions.
Is there a non-obvious aspect of Magic that you really enjoy and would like to explain to our listeners out there?
Yeah, so one aspect is this aspect of testing for tournaments, and the procedure of doing so is pretty unique to the game, where you need to spend a lot of time not just playing the game, like in fighting games or other games where you need to practice your craft and test it. In Magic, you also have to do a lot of theorizing, and this involves a process of not only just putting cards in your deck and like playing them and being like this card is good or bad, which is another aspect of it, but also coming up with an idea to attack certain cards and strategies that you might not actually be good, but nonetheless the ability to adapt and have a good mind for which cards are good and how can I build my deck in order to succeed against this strategy that I haven't been able to succeed against thus far takes a lot of time and a lot of collaboration, and I think it's a very underutilized skill that you get specifically from the game.
So this is an interesting thing when it comes to theorizing versus testing. How much, in your opinion, specifically for Magic, how much of the way you design and make decisions is based on theory versus based on like results and or experience? Because I'm of the opinion, I guess, sorry, one last thing. I'm of the opinion that when it comes to Magic, that the amount of results given the given the variables, that a lot of results are not like conducive isn't quite the right word. I don't think they're telling enough to deterministically like give you one bit of information or another, and that one of the things it seemed to me, in my experience anyway, was that a lot of games like Magic or like other big games like that have like large amounts of variables is that you kind of have to go on, you know, theory of, and like kind of following something like a theoretical like tunnel to its inevitable point, rather than going off, well, I played, you know, 20 games and this was the record. So like, because do you think that like games equal like good info, or do you think theory equals better info?
I think games equal better theory, if that makes sense. I think games can be used to adjust a mental model of where you think, how you think a matchup or a game should play out, but that shouldn't be the basis of a lot of your decisions. And in fact, I think as I feel I've improved in the game, I've become more in touch with good theory and good theoretical approaches to the game that I would not have gotten from playing more, just from thinking about things critically. And like you said, it's really hard to just jam your head against the wall because there is variance within the game, and playing more won't tell you everything that you need to know. But I also think as I've improved, I have gotten better at using the two somewhat interchangeably, because I think that you were able to recognize what contributed to winning games from playing a smaller sample as time goes on, even if that sample is insignificant.
So you kind of marry, it sounds like, theory, feel, and results in this kind of menage a trois of intellectual balance.
I want to stress more the theory point. I would agree that I think the results are kind of just a means to a justification for a lot of people, and I don't think that that's a great approach, but I do think that if you are intelligent about what results translate to, I think that you can very easily ask yourself what contributed to X, Y, and Z, and from there adjust. I could give you one good example from this past weekend, if that would interest you, because I have an interesting scenario. So I was playing a tournament online where I needed to play with cards I hadn't played before in a new format called Historic. And in doing so, there was a perceived deck called Jeskai Control that everyone had determined was the best version of the control deck. But by playing a few games and feeling like this was off, something was off about this deck, I was able to adjust kind of the main going over the top strategy, in a sense. So how you attack the other Jeskai decks, and figure out that there was a more optimal version which slowed the game down, playing like 2-mana enchantments that were hard to interact with and cards that weren't typically easy to answer. And by doing so, I think I created a strategy that was more primed for success just through theorizing what would be a better way of going over the top of this strategy rather than having the time to play a countless number of games. So that was cool for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really fantastic. I think, not to put you on too high a pedestal or loft you too high, but I think that's one of the things that, like, talking to people over the years as I've been in the scene in a smaller fashion, is one of the, like, keys to success, is figuring out, because time is one of the most finite resources we have, and so figuring out how to use the least amount of time to get the greatest amount of information or results is definitely, like, one of the biggest, skills to bring to such a endeavor.
Yeah, totally.
Is there an end goal or something, a kind of lofty trophy that you're driving towards?
I think that I would love to be able to end my Magic career saying that I top 8'd a Pro Tour. It was sort of a dream that I had growing up because I've played for so long, and I see how important it is to the others around me. And now that I think I've improved to the point where I can consistently compete on that level, I now feel like I would feel happy at the end of my time playing if I got to achieve a top 8 where I saw so many people playing on video, and I felt like these were kind of people who I idolized for so long. Being in that stage would be an amazing feeling.
You say end of your Magic career. Do you plan on quitting? Do you see the game going away? What do you mean by that?
I think that the game has an expiration date. I'm not sure when that is, but I think that the direction that the game is going right now is not great for its long-term success, and that could change. It's not something that I feel I'm committed to being done with. Currently, I'm in a place where I'm trying to balance college with playing on the weekends and also having time to meet new people, but it is important to me that the game offers some of the same benefits that it did in the past so that people are rewarded for consistently putting their efforts into the game. And right now, unfortunately, that has not been the case. A lot of people who are longtime pro players and who have invested their energy into the game are being shifted to the sidelines for the time being, unfortunately.
So is this... you see your lack of future in this game not to do with your interest, but rather the game's interest in you, if you will?
Yeah. As a competitive player, I would say that's the case, yeah.
Is this still a game that even if you kind of move out of the big-time competitive sphere, do you see yourself still playing it?
Yeah. I enjoy playing the game, and I have so many friends in the sphere that I think it would not suit me, and I wouldn't have as good of a time if I quit it. But there are other more casual and fun ways of enjoying the game that I'm sure I would find myself interested in.
Cool. All right, moving on from the beautiful and the passionate to the preposterous and the peeveful. What is your preposterous peeve, Nathan Steuer?
It would have to be adults or people who take fiction novels. Specifically, I would talk about Greek and Roman mythology adults. And when I say that title, I mean people who grew up on Percy Jackson and other of the fantasy novels in that genre that feel like they're experts on the subject. For some reason, it just makes my blood boil when I think about people who have read these novels a few times. Maybe they've read 6 or 7 books in a series, and all of a sudden they could tell you which Greek god you're most similar to and who you seem like based on their experience reading these novels. And it's like, okay, I get that you in some way are knowledgeable because you've read the little excerpts on page 1 and through 5 that tell you about each instance of this god doing X, Y, and Z. But no, you're not an expert. You've just read these fiction novels. I'm sorry.
Is it that they're misquoting information, or is it that they hold themselves to a loftier position than they deserve, in your opinion, that makes you more annoyed?
Definitely the latter. I think they hold themselves to a space where I could achieve that by reading a few novels a month in the same genre as well and have the same depth of knowledge.
So they give off that air of, welcome to the Smithsonian. Let me show you around the Greek section.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost holding a metaphorical pipe and, just kind of giving it, instead of walking, they saunter with a level of arrogance. Yeah, I believe I've met this man or woman that you speak of.
Yeah, it is not uncommon, I would say. But certainly whenever I hear it, I find it hilarious as well.
Oh, yeah. It's that right amount of preposterous. Of just like, oh, God, this guy, huh? It's like the guy who's gone to one concert and calls himself like a forever fan or something like that. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
Come on. You've done it. You've done one thing one time. Just dial it back in a little bit. That's awesome. That being said, did you like those books?
I think I would describe them as exactly fine. I would read them if I hadn't. Again, I wouldn't reread them. But I don't think that they're some generational inspiration. I just think that sometimes they're worse than reading Harry Potter if you have that time, honestly.
Do you have have you been compared to the way you talked about being compared, or like the way people talk about gods, or like you're like this, it sounds like almost like with what's it called, like your sign, your astrological sign or whatever. Is there one particular god or character that you've been compared to?
Um, I would say I've been compared to Hermes before. Um, the messenger god. I know I'm an expert, but I just think it's funny. It's like, okay, sure. I guess.
I don't. No, not that there's any bearing, but I don't understand how they got to that that end at all.
I don't know either, but
You strike me more as a Zeus kind of guy.
Zeus kind of guy. I'll take that as a compliment. Zeus. I would take Poseidon as well. Sort of an expert on Poseidon, but yeah.
What is your favorite Poseidon factoid if you're an expert?
Oh God! You're putting me on the spot. I'm
Boom,
panicking.
got him.
Yeah, I can't help you there.
He lives in a pineapple house under the sea? Oh wait, no, that's somebody else.
Oh yeah, close enough. Something like that. I know
Of
he
one,
has.
half dozen of another.
He has a trident. Fun fact. I'm pretty sure he's a trident.
He walks around with a big fork.
Yeah, walks around with a big fork to eat his pasta, and besides that, I think he can speak to sea creatures. A little bit of a mysterious figure in that sense. Oh my.
All right, well, before this interview is any more off the rails, let's throw it to our second commercial break. And after that, we'll be right back for the lightning round. Stick around. Having trouble staying awake?
Oh, yeah.
Wish you'd followed your dream so you had the give a crap necessary to meet your deadlines?
Oh, definitely.
Are you likely to be fired the second another warm body walks through that door and asks your boss for an application?
Probably.
Would you prefer to keep this shit sack of a job instead of explaining to Susan that you've been fired?
I mean, I guess.
Well then, let me introduce you to caffeine. Caffeine is a highly addictive substance that'll keep you jittery and energized to do any fucking stupid task for hours.
That sounds like drugs.
It is!
Aren't drugs illegal?
Not this one. So next time you feel like sitting on the sidewalk instead of at your desk, reach for a caffeine.
Wait, you didn't tell me where I can buy it.
'Cause it's mother-lovin' everywhere, you blind Neanderthal. Welcome back, folks. Nathan Steuer. Are you ready to go into the lightning round? Lightning round.
I'm ready and prepared.
All right, let's put enough time on the clock for him to answer all the questions. Nathan, is there a god?
No.
Shakira's voice in Danny DeVito's body, or Danny DeVito's voice in Shakira's body?
Danny DeVito's voice in Shakira's body, not close.
Wine or beer?
Beer.
Are hot dogs sandwiches?
Yes.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Something terrible.
Lions, tigers, or bears?
Bears.
Is 0 a number?
Yes.
Caffeine or alcohol?
Caffeine.
Bow tie or suspenders?
Bow tie.
Have you ever paid more for a meal than you made in a week?
No.
Neapolitan or Spumoni?
Spumoni.
No one's looking. Do you put the cart back or leave it in the parking lot?
Leave it in the parking lot.
If you had the power to see the future but couldn't change it, would you use it?
Yes.
Over or under?
Under.
Pineapple on pizza or fist fight?
Pineapple on pizza.
Can billionaires be ethical?
No.
Kill the spider or get an adult?
Kill the spider.
Red or blue?
Blue.
Is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
Yes.
Salsa or Lindy Hop?
Salsa.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Which one of your parents settled?
My dad.
Sunny side up, scrambled, or hard boiled?
Sunny side up.
Which do you max out first? Intelligence, charisma, or strength?
Charisma.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Yes.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Gilbert Gottfried.
Popsicle or Klondike bar?
Klondike bar.
Are Cheez-Its addicting?
Oh yeah.
Are we alone in the universe?
No.
Congratulations, Nathan Steuer. You've survived the lightning round. What lightning round question would you like me to ask and in turn be asked of future guests?
Pizza or pasta? What are you picking?
Oh.
Yeah.
Right now I think I'm taking pasta, but I think it's just because pizza's too readily available.
That is valid. I think I love good pasta a little more, but the best of the best pizzas by far would be my pick if you're put in that situation. So it's hard. It's tricky.
Did you come out with us that night in Vegas where we went to the Italian restaurant and got the lasagna pizza?
No, I don't think I did, but that sounds fabulous.
It's like Chicago deep dish to the Italian Max. It is absurdly decadent, but worth every heart attack you get from it.
That sounds great. I will have to do that next time I'm in Vegas.
Yeah. Anything you want to plug, recommend, places people can find you or your content?
Yeah. If you're at all interested in pursuing Magic the Gathering or have any questions, you can reach me on Twitter at naTHANSteuer1. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to DM me, and I will happily respond or engage with you.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, Nathan, for being my guest today, and special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And especially thank you, everybody listening at home or wherever you found the time to appreciate this. And if you want to listen to more, you can find more episodes put out every Monday on Soundcloud at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves, or on YouTube at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast, all one word with an ampersand in the middle. And remember, folks, it's scary out there. Bring a towel. That way you can throw over your head and pretend like there's no problem at all. Have a good one.